Hi, and welcome to another episode of PDA Dad UK. In this episode, I'm going to be looking at reframing and reducing demands for PDA and autistic kids. So hi, welcome back to PDA Dad UK. As I say, before we go on, please do go hit like, hit subscribe and ring the bell so that you know when new content's coming up. It makes a huge difference just to how the algorithms work and how it gets out there on YouTube and lets people see this the way they're meant to see it, and hopefully help some people. So that would be really awesome. Just go do it now. I'll wait a couple of seconds while you do it. So as I say, in this episode, I'm going to be looking at reframing and reducing demands for autistic kids and for PDA kids. Now, my daughter is both autistic and PDA. She has a PDA profile. And reducing and controlling the way demands work for her has been integral in being a parent to her. Now, I think I've said in previous episodes, I had to essentially relearn parenting from the ground up with my daughter. I mean, she was my firstborn. But everything I'd been raised through, the way my parents raised me and the way I'd seen other parents raise their kids. I was late to the parenting game. I was 36 when my daughter was born. Everything I'd learned, everything that was naturally instinctive in parenting, I had to basically tear down and build back up. It's kind of like Lego. It's the same building blocks, but the arrangement's different and the result is very different. But what you're aiming for is the same sound structural building, if you like. And that was a big thing for me. So having to relearn my style of parenting and how to work with my daughter, meet her where she's at. And we've said this a lot over the last few episodes in particular, but for me, this is all about meeting my daughter where she's at, supporting her with who she is, how she operates, while also raising a child that's going to be able to exist and function in society, if you like. For whatever accommodations I truly believe we need to make in society to acknowledge, to accept, to celebrate neurodiversity, there is a point where certain things just aren't acceptable. Trashing a supermarket because the shoes aren't right isn't going to cut mustard with anyone, and that's not going to work. You've got to be able to sort of meet somewhere in the middle where we're providing a world for our kids to thrive in, whilst also being able to be respectful and considerate human beings. So it's a challenge to do, and it's something that I struggled with for a long, long time. We still struggle with. I don't know a parent, period, who doesn't struggle with this at some level. But when you add neurodiversity into the mix, when you've got an autistic child, when you've got somebody who has PDA, it is so much more challenging to be able to work around the demands. So we've spoken in previous episodes about the traits and the differences in PDA and what PDA is. Do go check that out. There's a lot of useful information in there. However, what I wanted to really start focusing on is how we've then taken those traits and adapted our lifestyle so that my daughter can function in a more suitable way that keeps everybody safe. And that's really what it came down to for us. Where when my daughter's in meltdown, it's very aggressive. Things get thrown, people get hit, pinched, bitten, kicked, whatever, She lashes out, and it's not her fault, and I understand that. But that doesn't mean it's something that I can accept. If somebody else is at risk of getting hurt, I have to be able to do something about it. Now, a lot of the information that I've got here has come from a lot of the reading, a lot of books and that I've read over time, and also from my own experience and putting into practice these things. Advice from different sources, different people, PDAs themselves, autistic people themselves, and being able to sort of adapt that sort of mindset into what I'm doing. But a lot of the information that I'm going to be giving here comes from one direct source, which was Understanding Pathological Demand Avoidance Syndrome in Children. It's a fantastic book. I call it the Bible for any PDA parent. So if you've got kids who have PDA, and I think autism in general, I think there's a lot in the book that really does translate. There'll be a link in the description if you want to go and purchase it, please do. It is a fantastic book and highly recommended reading, especially if you're trying to get schools to understand what PDA is and autism is, but particularly with PDA. If you're struggling to get the point across, it's a book that's designed for both parents and for educators. So it's definitely worth putting a few quid in and having a good read. So how do we work with demands with PDA kids and autistic kids? Going back to what we've sort of discussed in previous episodes, as I say, is the fact that there's an intrinsic link between autism and anxiety. And with PDA, that anxiety is expressed in a need to be in control. It's subconscious. It's not something that a child is doing deliberately, or a PDA is doing deliberately, consciously. I have to be in control. I have to be in control. It's not like that. It's subconscious. It's their brain trying to cope with the anxiety that's within. And the best way their brain has worked to manage the anxiety that's there is if they're in control. If they're in charge, then it's one less thing to worry about, if that makes sense. The demand itself creates an anxiety, if you like. And by refusing to do it, they're in control, and it somehow helps to control the level of anxiety that's building inside. But it does lead to some very challenging behaviours. So it's very difficult not to give demands to kids in general. And I'm going to take the idea of a school day as a great example, and I think it's something that we often face. Certainly, it's probably the most challenging part of our day is getting ready for school, because it's laden with demands. Get up, clean your teeth, have a wash, have a shower, get your school uniform ready, get dressed. How's your lunch? Have you had breakfast yet? Are you having drinks? What do you want now? Demand, 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 demand. It's all there, and it all builds up, and it's why the mornings can be such a challenge, because innately it's just full of demands. And for my daughter, it's even more enhanced, and this may be the case for many of you, because it's enhanced by the fact that she is kind of obsessed with timekeeping, and it creates a massive anxiety. And you see it if it's getting close to, so her taxi picks her up for school at 8:10, and she knows this, and so suddenly that's a demand that's been put on her that's just completely unintentional, but it's there. You have to be at the taxi by a certain time, because you have to be at school by a certain time. You have to wear school uniform. You have to be dressed a certain way. You have to wear a coat in the cold. You have to have a hat if it's cold. You have to have your lunch. Is your bag packed? It just piles up and up and up, and we don't think about it. When I get up in the morning, I know what I've got to do, and I just get on with it, and it's very routine. And we know autistic people often thrive on routine, and my daughter certainly fits that bill. She needs that routine in place, but the pressure of time just adds that extra element, and it really makes things more challenging for us, and for her as well, massively for her. So how do we go about reducing demands at a time like getting ready for school, when it is just so laden with demands that are just innate and we can't avoid them? It's difficult, and there's no easy solution to any of this. And I think that's probably a really big lesson to take away from anything, is there's no quick fixes and no easy solutions. This all takes a lot of hard work, and I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news with that. There's not a magic wand that you can just wave and it all goes away. We wouldn't want that. I don't want my daughter to be anybody but who she is, but I want her to be happy as well. And she's not happy in the mornings, or she wasn't happy in the mornings. She still struggles in the mornings, but I want her to be content. I want her to go into school positive, refreshed, and able to have a clear mind so that she can get on with the day and do the learning that she needs to do. So the big one for us is uniform. This plays into a number of areas. Because my daughter's got sensory processing disorder as well, the texture and feel of clothing is a big thing, and she'll have sort of 2 or 3 items that she has to wear, and we end up with the same school uniform every day, the same items, because they've got a certain feel to them. They've got a certain, her body's used to it and it's comfortable for her. She has to have certain socks. She has to have certain pants. She has to have the same dress, and she has to wear the same shirt. We've got multiple uniforms. They're there for emergency, essentially, because we have to wash everything the night she comes home and make sure it's fresh again for the next morning. And, it's just something we do that helps her to, that's just one less thing for her to worry about. She knows she's got her comfortable clothes. And one thing that really did help at the beginning, we don't do it so much now because we know the process now, we know what she's wearing, but giving her the choice of what to wear. So again, uniform is uniform, and, they're all the same, but somehow giving that control to her at night. We used to do it the night beforehand, so it wasn't a stress in the morning. It wasn't, what are you going to wear this morning? Because that's just another demand. So it was a more relaxed way to do it. At night, before she went to bed, it was like, so what are you going to wear to school in the morning? What t-shirt do you want? What dress are you going to wear? What socks are you going to wear? That sort of stuff. allowing her to pick it gave her a sense of control. It, in the end, it made no difference. To me, they're 5 identical shirts, 5 identical dresses. But for her, it made a difference because she was picking what she wanted. It gave her an illusion of control, if you like. She was in control. She was able to pick what she had. And therefore, she was able to get it together, and that was there. And likewise with school lunches, we used to pack, her school only do packed lunches. They don't do school dinners. And so what we used to do was, and again, it's something that as she's grown older, she's become more independent with, and she likes the responsibility of making her own lunch. We obviously check it, we know what's going in there and what she's going into school with, but for her, it's that sense of control again, and it's something we could relinquish quite happily. It still got the job done and allowed her to feel more in control. So just allowing her to pick what she wanted in lunch, and she has essentially the same thing every day. But her being able to make it just gives another element of control. And it means it's there the night before. So again, it's not something that's adding a pressure in the morning. The lunch is there, it's in the fridge waiting. All she has to do is pull it out and put it in a school bag. By incrementally reducing these demands, it made the mornings that much easier. Now it still goes on, and if she loses a sock, if she's put it somewhere and she can't find it, all hell breaks loose. It's horrendous. And it's because it's an anxiety for her. It's just creating another what if this isn't going right? And it's a stress for her. And so she, it builds up, and that's when we lead to meltdowns. And it's very difficult because you've got to get her in a taxi to get to school. For most parents, you've got to get them in your car, or you've got to get them down the road to your school. And that's not possible when you've got a kid who's melting down. It's just not. So for us, it was all about avoiding reaching meltdown, which, that's what we're aiming for anyway, isn't it? Avoiding the point where our kids reach meltdown. But especially in the mornings, it was just a real case of how do we coast the mornings without having too much pressure. Because my daughter thrives on routine, we have established a very strong routine, and that just reduces the demands again. The demands are still there, but because we've focused it in routine, it's just what happens, and it's easier when you just got that routine. And I think everybody has a morning routine anyway. Before I had kids, there was certainly, you get up, get a shower, clean your teeth, get ready, hop in the car, go to work, whatever your routine is. Upon having kids and especially having to become a full-time carer, it was a big thing. I had to sort of change my routine, and my routines adapted over time to adopt my daughter's needs into that. And when you've got more than one kid, it throws in an extra dimension because you've got the demands there that, even though they're not demands on my daughter, she's aware of what my son needs to be doing, and she gets stressed if he's not sort of where he needs to be. And it's one of those things that we've just gently introduced over time is, making sure that he's aware of where he's at, and he's really clicked into that routine quite naturally. So, that makes it much, much easier again. But by reducing these demands, by sort of avoiding them in the morning, as much preparation as we could do, it really has helped to make those morning routines that much simpler. But what about the demands you can't avoid? So there has to be a point that we're out of the house. There has to be a point that she's in the taxi because she has to be on school on time. And these are all demands that are there. She has to get up. She has to have a shower. She has to clean her teeth. She has to do all these things. And they're all demands that you can't really shift to any other point. So how do you make these things seem that much less of a demand? And this is when we get into a concept that's called reframing. And I got this from Nicola Ricci, who we've interviewed on this channel before. Nicola Ricci runs the PDA Space and the PDA Summit. And she talks about reframing. And it's basically when you've got a demand that's presenting, how do you change it from being just do this to something that they want to be involved with? They feel that control. And this really comes back to everything that we need to be able to do is giving our kids the illusion that they have the control. Giving them the control, if you like. Illusions may be a bit of a silly way to put it. You're giving them a sense of control in a situation that you have to maintain control in. So, cleaning the room is a classic example. And I've talked a lot about, you can shift from, rather than saying, go clean your room, it's what should we put away first? But there's other ways you can reframe that as well. Making it into a game. How do you make something into a game that, helps you to achieve the goal that you need to have a clean room. So who can do this the quickest? How fast can we get this cleaned up? How many things can we put away in there? or let's count as we put them in. How many times are we going to count into the box and then put it away? You're working with them, but you're making it into a game, and it can take that point of stress, that demand, and make it something that's more engaging and fun, and they feel they have control over. So they're choosing to play the game. Would you like to play a game? Let's play a game. Da, 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 da. And so you're taking away the demand and making it something they have a choice to be involved in. And it's all about these sort of incremental, subtle shifts that is a complete change in parenting style. Because for me, I was told clean your room, and I went and cleaned my room, and I know if I hadn't, I'd be in trouble. I was often in trouble. But that's just the way it is. But for my daughter, it's only going to create a situation where I'm telling her, go clean your room. It creates a demand, it creates the anxiety, which then leads to the challenging behaviours that we know. So how do we avoid getting to that point? And those are the things that we do. We try and reframe things. Now, my daughter has learned to be quite reward driven with this. Now, rewards are an interesting one because for a lot of autistic kids and a lot of PDAs especially, rewards don't really work. But we don't do reward charts with my daughter. We were told to try them at one point on one of the parenting courses you get forced to go on to as part of the diagnosis process. But reward charts don't work. And the problem with reward charts is that it's just too forward thinking. The idea that you're going to get a reward at the end of the week if you've done this all week and all this kind of stuff. You can adapt reward charts to accommodate our kids' needs, and you could make it an immediate reward. We just don't find they work. But what she has found is that if she has a reward coming at the end of doing something specific, it helps, but it has to be her choice again. So I let her ask it. I don't say, if you do this, you can have this, because that won't work. It's a demand. We've done it enough times now that she knows, like, we need to get that room clean, don't we? Should we do that at some point today? And then she'll come back to me with, well, can I have a reward for doing it? And it's usually a few quid on Roblox or something like that she can just buy some Robux and play. It might be that she has some makeup that she's after, or a fidget toy or something like that. In the end, it's what, we would put toward pocket money. They're only small things, and we do keep that structured. We can't, you can't have an iPad every time you clean your room. I'm already broke. I don't need to be more so bankrupt within a month. That's the point, is that it's something that she comes to me with now, and she's kind of in control of. She comes and she says, can I have a few pounds of Robux if I do my room? Yes, you can. That's fantastic. And in fact, many times now I don't need to ask her to do her room. She just comes up with it. I need to do my room. Can I have the reward? And sometimes it can't be done. And that's a difficult situation in itself. Sometimes I just don't have the money available that I can be shooting a few quid off for Robux. And it's like, well, maybe we can't do Robux today. But what's something else we can do that's, maybe we can spend some time playing. Maybe we can do something where I could do some drawing with you or something like that. A reward that is in there, but it's not monetary necessarily. So that really helps as well. I guess the key here is flexibility. In presenting these demands, we need to present them in a way that's flexible and gives them some wiggle room within there to be able to do it. Clean your room now is different to, when would you like to clean your room today? Do you want to do it now, or do you want to do it later? You're presenting the demand, but you're giving them a choice within it. So you're allowing the decision to be made by them, giving them that sense of control and reducing the demand anxiety that's going to be formed initially. Problem is, it also does, if they put it off, it creates a demand coming, and that can present its own issues. We're getting later in the day, you haven't done your room yet. When are you going to do your room? There are more demands, and it can create another problem in itself. So it's a bit of sort of, wizardry involved for parents, where you have to sort of be able to play the game, but also influence it in the direction you need. Well, if you do it, when are you going to clean your room? Well, so you need to clean your room today. When would you like to do it? I tell you what, it'd be really nice to go for a walk this afternoon, wouldn't it? So do you reckon we should do it before that? Presenting some options that allow you to guide the decision in a way that you need it to be. It still creates a demand, but it's that sort of, being able to control it within that. And then doing things like making it a game, making it something fun, reframing it from a demand to something that they want to be involved with. Another one that can often work is reverse psychology. It's a tricky one, but obviously you've got something which is the idea that whatever you request is going to be met with the answer no. So go clean your room. No. And would you like to clean your room? No. Whatever the situation is, it comes back with that, the classic PDA, I refuse to do it, demand avoidance. So making demands flexible is a bit of an art form that can come into this. So it's being able to make it something that they have that sense of control in. Being flexible with it means that there's flexibility within it, that wiggle room that allows them that sense of control. So, when you're considering these things, and let's shift from the idea of preparing for school or cleaning your room. Maybe it's just that you're going out, going shopping. I didn't realize it until I had my daughter, until we discovered PDA, that there's so many demands involved with just going to the shops. I have to have my shoes on. I have to be dressed. I have to be presentable, at least in some fashion. It doesn't matter what I wear, but I have to be wearing something. I have to get to the car. I have to, and you have to have things. You've got to have the food for dinner, and you've got to have the food for the snacks that the kids will want through the day. You've got to have drinks in the house. You've got to have this, that, and the other. There's just demands. And you suddenly realise why this builds up and why we get these explosive behaviours that come from the continual overwhelmingness of demands upon you. And for my daughter, it really, really makes her struggle. Going to the shops is something that should be relatively simple. But you remember I spoke to Laura O'Connell, she's an adult PDA, and she talked about the fact that shopping is something that's really, really hard for her. She has, I think it was 3 supermarkets within a 5-minute walking distance from her, but she still gets home delivery because it just reduces that one demand. All she has to do is log on overtime, put it in the basket and get it delivered to the house. It's just one less thing she has to stress about and has to do. And she finds that so helpful. And it's just one less thing to worry about, one less demand. Life is just full of demands. If we work, if we're at school, wherever they are, there's demand. You have to have work completed on time. You have deadlines, you have time frames. You have other people that you have to include, you have to consult, you have to be able to report back to the boss. At schools, you've got teachers who are constantly telling you it's time to do this, it's time to do that. It all just builds and builds and builds. So how we can reduce those demands over time is so key to keeping those behaviours, those challenging behaviours in check and allowing our kids to feel that little less anxious that helps them be more themselves, meeting them where they're at. So reverse psychology can work. Reverse psychology can be something that we place in there that is, I don't think you want to do this, so don't worry about it. And suddenly it piques the interest. No, what? Oh, I need some help cleaning the kitchen, but that's all right. I'll take care of it myself. And I've done this with my daughter, and it does work. And I'm hoping she doesn't watch this episode. You should know all my tricks. But it's one of those things that if I've sort of it's not something you'll want to do. It sort of piques her interest, and it gives her an opportunity to be unexpectedly helpful. And this has picked up with other areas where she's learnt this. And she likes the feeling of when I'm really pleased that she's been helpful. She actually likes that sort of sense of, reward or pleasure. It comes from the connection that we have at the time, perhaps. I don't know the psychology of it, but the fact that she's done something helpful gives her a good feeling inside, as I think it does with all people. I know I like it when somebody tells me something's helped or something's been good. So for my daughter, I guess what it does is it allows her to take the lead, which gives that sense of control back to her. If she's then able to go, no, I'd like to do that. It's her own decision. And so that sense of control is in there. And the reward that comes and pleasure that comes from being helpful is really good. And it's played through into other things. My daughter will often do things now because she thinks it's going to be helpful. We've been having our kitchen done over the last couple of weeks. And over the weekend, the builders were gone because it was the weekend. And she started putting stuff back in the kitchen. Now, at the time, it was like, no, we need to pull all that back out, which I ended up doing this morning. But what she was doing was trying to be helpful because she knew that would make everybody happy and pleased with her. And so she got everything, and she put the bits and pieces back in the kitchen from the living room where they've all been stored while they're doing the kitchen. And it was just a really nice thing. And it's that kind of that desire to be helpful, and that's in there. And I think this is where that whole thing about, they're just naughty kids. They're not just naughty kids. They're not naughty at all. They want to be helpful. It's what's going on internally that creates the situation. And it's so good that we're in a time where we're understanding that more and more. You know, still a long way to go, I know, but what I do like is that we're in a world that's starting to become more aware that there are, you know, neurodiversities, and we have to make adaptations and our understanding in our approaches to allow our kids, to allow neurodiverse people to be who they are in the world, because we shouldn't be making them change. Now, one that we didn't know we were using, but we were, is distraction. Now, this is one that, this isn't about, okay, let's just do something else and distracting away from the task at hand. But things like, so we're going to go back to the getting dressed thing. Getting school uniform on in the morning. It works better with younger kids, but it's something that can continue. And it's that idea of distracting by simply having a conversation while things are taking place. I know my daughter needs to get her school uniform on, so as she's getting dressed, being able to chat to her and just talk about something. Oh, you enjoyed that show last night, didn't you? What was the funny bit in that? And just having to talk about something different. She's focused on the conversation, and the clothes just go on that little bit easier. Doesn't work every time, and it's, again, you know, these things they're not a one size fits all, and they're not magic wands that just fix every situation. But having these little toolkits, this little arsenal of ways that you can go in, and ways that we can go in and help our kids just to get through these moments, make a big difference. And distraction is a really good one for that kind of situation, and it can also help with a lot of other situations. So a change in routine or a change in environment can be quite jarring. So I don't know if soft play is one I often like to use as an example. You open the doors to soft play, and it's like hitting a wall of noise. The door opens, and suddenly it's chaos, and it's just noise and kids running around and screaming and machines kicking off here and there and lights flashing and all kinds of things. If I'm able to be talking to my daughter as we go through the door, if I'm talking to her about something, I'm engaging her in something else, it kind of puts that stuff to the background and allows that transition to take place that little more easily. Distraction isn't distracting them from doing what they're doing. It's allowing them to continue what they're doing whilst being distracted by something else. Another way of doing this is to have something which you can distract to set up ready. So one of the things that we have is that if we've gone out, the most challenging time that I have with my daughter is often in the car on the way back. The fun stuff's happened. If we've been out having a walk, gone to the park, getting back in the car, and that's when I start to see these challenging behaviours start to edge. She becomes more agitated. She becomes more annoying to my son. She'll agitate him. She'll annoy him quite deliberately. And it's all this sense of, you know, control, and it's the nervousness about going back, and the good fun stuff's over. And it's just, so having something set up back at home ready is something that I can use to distract. Maybe we've got a game that we're going to play. Maybe it's when we get home, you can make a den. Having just something there that's that little, you know, that little carrot on the end of the stick, if you like, that just allows you to have a conversation. So we're going home now. Are you looking forward to making a den, Sienna? And suddenly she's like, oh yeah, what kind of den are you going to make? And that conversation leads on, and it can distract from that sense of tension that the fun's over, and it's, you know, again, a transition of environment. Simply by using those distraction techniques, it can make a huge difference in how we can help our kids to adjust from one situation to another without overloading their anxieties. Offering choices is another one that gets used, and we've kind of alluded to this already, but the idea that you might want to have a few different styles of shoe ready for school. Now, my daughter's school have a uniform policy, and she has to have black leather shoes. But having a couple of different types, she's got some ankle boots which are allowed. She's got some, you know, open, sort of almost sandal style, not open toed, but you know, the style of shoe. And she's got some black trainery style ones. All are allowed within her school. Because she's got the three options there, that's something that is just a choice that she can make. Now, we've already said my daughter tends to wear exactly the same thing, and that's certainly the case. But somehow just having those options there, and every now and again she'll just choose something different. And I think that's just exercising that control, or just the desire for something different at the time. But that's something that's we found really integral and really important. It's just having those little choices in there, allowing her to make the decision. Again, it's giving that control back, that sense of I'm in charge here, and I'm in charge of my own destiny. And that helps alleviate the anxieties. Offering choices can be a really good thing. And you can bring it into play in a lot of different ways. So coming back to the whole bedroom thing, How do you get someone to clean a room? You can't. If you make the demand, go tidy your room, that's a demand, and it's going to meet with opposition. It's going to meet with, it's going to meet with avoidance. Offering choices somehow takes that away. So going in and saying, what should we put away first? Should we put your shoes away first, or should we put your toys away first, or should we do your bedding first? And just having this range of different options there, and it gives that control back and allows her to make choices within the situation. And it's just those little things. Offering choices can be a really useful technique. Now, this is a big one, and it's one that I struggle with hugely, and that's ignoring undesirable behaviours. Now, my daughter, this is something that's innate with PDA. It's one of those things that the language that my daughter will use can be really, really offensive. And there are some situations where I just can't ignore it. She's learned some slurs or anything like that through school, which has happened. I can't allow that, and I won't have that in my home. It's difficult because you need to be able to address it in that situation. But I've learned to let smaller things go and not make a fuss constantly. Doesn't mean I ignore it completely. So swearing's a really good example. When my daughter started at her school, because it's a special educational needs school, they actually said, look, she's going to really learn some interesting phrases. It's just the nature of the kids that we have here. Some are from very challenging and difficult backgrounds, and so they've learned to speak a certain way, and it does carry through. So we apologise ahead, but that will be something that happens. And boy, were they right. And she's come out with some absolute doozies over the time. Some which are just amusing, and they become a joke. The word lunter is often used in my circle of friends now after my daughter decided she could rhyme. And I didn't know whether to be proud that she had the poetic skill or really devastated at the word that she was trying to rhyme it with. It's one of those situations, but I've learned to sort of let go, and pulling her up every time she swears, just makes her swear more. That's one of those things that if I've said stop doing that, again, it's a demand, it creates the anxiety, and it's a refusal. Letting it go means that it happens less. It's an ironic twist of fate. But by not addressing every situation constantly, it actually allows for certain things not to become a big issue, and so takes away the power in them, so to speak. So being able to ignore things that are challenging but not the end of the world is one of those things. It makes for some very interesting visit with relatives and stuff like that. My mum was married to a minister before he passed away, so you can imagine she's this very sweet, very calm, quiet lady, if you like. And the look on her face sometimes when she's been visiting, or we visited her, and my daughter comes out with something, and I'm just like, and you kind of explain what's going on. We've learned just to do the frozen thing and let it go. So that's something that we've learned to do. Pick your battles, I guess, is the best way to look at it. And that was the key for us. It's learning to pick the things that really do need to be addressed and work with them steadily and one thing at a time. And let certain things go that aren't the end of the world. And, hopefully over time you can just sort of instill it over time by setting an example and that kind of stuff. And that's what we've had to do. The one I want to finish on for this, and it's one that is so integral, and it's one I hugely struggle with, and that's staying calm and neutral myself. And it is really difficult when you've got somebody who, and I know this is something that's innate with a lot of PDAs and a lot of autistic kids, and it's that sense that my daughter picks away. She loves that sense of control that comes from just chipping away and chipping away and chipping away, and being annoying and frustrating because it's giving her that sense of control. I'm in the control of the situation because I'm doing this. And you just want to go, stop! And she would do certain things because she knows they're going to be annoying. And it's being able to deal with those things and remain calm myself. And it gets even harder when you've got someone who's, hit meltdown and it's just kicking and screaming and things throwing. And I struggle with it. I really, really do struggle with it, because I'm suddenly I've got to keep everybody safe. I've got to keep myself safe. I've got to keep her safe. I've got to, minimize the damage. I can't afford to keep replacing TVs because, chairs being thrown through it or whatever. I had to control the situation, but it's keeping calm as I do so. And I find it so hard, and I fail at this consistently, but I keep trying. Hopefully that's the key, is just keep trying, because it makes such a difference when I remain calm, even tone, and look, it's more than that, sympathetic. I understand you're in a difficult position, it's just little things. I'm here for you. Okay, you're okay. I'm here for you. I've got you. I tend to try and use reassuring words when it's happening now, because it just adds that calm. And if I can be there for her in those moments, it does help to minimize them. If I'm losing it, if I'm becoming shouty or panicky or overly stressed myself, then it just feeds the whole situation, and she reacts to it because it's creating another demand. Stop what you're doing, stop, another demand. So it's going to create more situation. And it's this vicious cycle and a snowball effect until things just get completely out of control. If I remain calm, if I remain even and neutral, it really does make a difference in the severity and also the length of meltdown periods. If I can be supportive in it, let her know I'm here, I'm not judging her, she's not in trouble. Look, I love you anyway. There's nothing you can ever do that will stop me loving you. Just can't. I've got you. You're okay. You're safe with me. Makes a huge, huge difference, because that's all it comes down to, is that feeling of safety at that point, knowing they're safe. I'm going to leave this one at that. There's more, a lot more I can discuss on this, and I think it warrants probably another episode another time. But it's something that these are just things that I've had to adapt to over time, letting my daughter be herself and supporting her with who she is, while also existing in a world where there are requirements and rules and things that we have to abide by and things that need to be done, and being able to live in that world whilst also respecting the fact that she finds it very difficult when faced with demands. If you're a PDA, I'd love to hear from you. If you've got things that have really helped you to manage the PDA side of things in childhood or adult life, I'd love to hear about it. Please do put it in the comments. Likewise, any parents out there, if you've found some techniques that really help with PDA or autism and helping our kids to manage in the world in that better way that just makes them more comfortable, please do put it in the comments. I really would love to hear your feedback. Please do hit like, hit subscribe, and ring the bell so that you know we've got new content going up. It does make a huge difference. I will be back on the next episode, but in the meantime, please stay safe. I'll see you next time.